Just a year ago, when Hyundai showed off the production version of the Ioniq 5 all-electric SUV, they really caused a big stir, and today they are looking to show us the next chapter of the Ioniq family. I'm at the 2022 LA International Auto Show, and this right here is the 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 6. Let's take a first look. So last year when I had a chance to finally get behind the wheel of the Ioniq 5, it was one of my favorite vehicles, electric vehicles that I drove. So now that we're finally seeing the new Ioniq 6 in person, let me first go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. As you can see underneath the hood, we do have a small frunk, which is kind of similar in size to the Ioniq 5. There's typically a cover here, but again, this is a really early prototype. But because we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. Here in the US, the Ioniq 6 will launch with a single motor rear-wheel drive unit or a dual motor all-wheel drive version. The single motor will offer up to 225 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. The all-wheel drive version will offer around 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. There's only one battery choice here in America. It's the larger 77.4 kilowatt-hour pack, and Hyundai says the range has been markedly improved over the Ioniq 5, so you get up to 340 miles on the single motor rear drive version, but this all-wheel drive version will still do 310 miles. So that is a very impressive range figure. I imagine that has to do with the aerodynamics, because this is a sedan. Hyundai says that you get a 0.22 coefficient of drag. The Ioniq 5 is a crossover. This has a slippery, better aerodynamic shape, so you're gonna get better range, of course. But let's go ahead and close up the hood. This particular color, I believe, is called Curated Silver, and when I first saw this vehicle out in the Korean market in pictures, I really fell in love with the design, but I have to say, finally seeing the car in person for the US market is a very impressive thing. I love the overall look of this car. Hyundai, again, is really killing it with the Ioniq 5. This model here kind of goes with a little bit more of a sleeker, more sedan profile. I really like the kind of teardrop shape that you get at the front. Remember, this is all for aerodynamics, so you have their full LED headlights, which use 700 parametric pixels in the design. I even love the fact that you have an amber illuminated daytime running light. It really makes the car stand out, especially with the light signature. You also have this new Hyundai logo here with the kind of metallic look to the actual H logo. This actually kind of reminds me of the new logo that you find on Genesis products. And then you can see here, there's no grille here. It's an electric vehicle. You do have some of the sensors for the full speed range adaptive cruise control. You have the parking sensors. You have a front camera system. So all the modern tech that you expect in this car. And when it goes on sale next year, it's really going to stand out in terms of the design. But looking at the rest of the profile, this is riding on the E-GMP architecture. That's the same one that underpins cars like the Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, the Genesis GV60. And compared to the Ioniq 5, the wheelbase of the Ioniq 6 has been stretched by 2 inches, so we have a 116-inch long wheelbase. I don't have the overall length specs, but it does appear to be a longer vehicle, obviously. And then you can see the roof profile, the silhouette of the vehicle is really kind of Art Deco for me. The fact that it kind of curves so steeply at the rear is all for aerodynamics. I also love how the door handles, again, are flush. They pop out just like on the Ioniq 5. You have a really nicely integrated turn signal mirror with more of that parametric kind of cube pixels that you find from the headlights kind of shown in the front, on the side mirrors as well. And then the wheels, you can see Hyundai will offer a choice of between an 18 or a 20-inch wheel. This is obviously the 20-inch wheel with the machine look. It's got the black accents. These are two 45/40 R20 tires. So again, really fat tires. They fill out the wheel wells nicely. I suspect when this car goes on sale, it's going to turn a lot of heads because of its very unique design. Now, again, up here, you can see it's got a panoramic glass roof, and it is going to let in a lot of light. And then this shape kind of reminds me again of the first generation Mercedes-Benz CLS, or even a really old Infiniti J30. That's what I first thought when I first saw this vehicle out in pictures. But you can see the back end of this car, really beautiful design, super unique, and that's kind of where Hyundai is killing it. The designers are just doing such a great job. You have this really interesting spoiler here where it looks like this is almost like a solar panel here. I'll have to double check where that is, but you can see more of those pixels from the headlights. They're kind of on the taillights or on the spoiler over here. You have this really steeply raked rear windshield, which again, all for aerodynamics. And then the back, really cool light signature with the full length LED pixelated taillights. You have Ioniq 6 spelled out the back. You have that new corporate logo. Camera over here, then you can see the rear bumper is slightly more aggressive on this model here, which again gives it a more unique shape. But let's go ahead and open up the trunk. You can see it is actually just a traditional trunk. I thought this would be a Sportback, but I don't have figures yet for the cargo area. Obviously, with the way it's shaped, it's going to compromise the cargo space a little bit, but you can see the seats, they don't appear to fold down actually. Or maybe they do, I'll have to double check. That's a little dark in here. If you open this up here, you can see there is a little bit of underfloor storage where you can put the mobile charger over here. But overall, let me know what you think of the design. This is definitely a really cool vehicle to see in person. All right, so now that you've done oogling over the exterior of the new Ioniq 6, let's go ahead and hop into the interior, because Just like the Ioniq 5, Hyundai has really pulled out all the stops here for their interiors for their all-electric vehicles. It is just a really nice, modern, comfortable, simple, but also tech-heavy environment to spend time in. It's also very comfortable. Now, the first thing, as I get into these seats are made of a vegan material. It's all made with sustainable materials. You can see there's some really interesting contrasting piping and stitching in these seats. These seats kind of remind me of the Ioniq 5. The padding feels a little bit stiffer in this, however. I'll have to sit in the two vehicles side to side to compare. But you do get features like heated and ventilated seats, which are available on the higher trims, and you also have a 12-way power adjustable seat with a 2-person memory on the driver's side. Now, as I look at the rest of the interior, let me first talk about some of the materials. Now, the dashboard, or the door panel here, surprisingly, has a hard touch plastic material. It has a nice texture to it. It's a smooth texture, but check this out. It almost has kind of these like ridges that you find as you go down into the lower part of the panel. There's also ambient lighting. There's a metallic accented door handle here, which surprisingly, it uses just a traditional door handle to open and close it, and the door also makes a nice solid sounding thunk. There's some more sustainable materials here along the side where I would rest my elbows here, and I'm also noticing no window controls on the actual doors. Hyundai wanted to go with a more flush look over here, so instead you just have like this soft panel with the speakers and some storage down here. The window controls are all over here on the center screen here, or on the center console display, which you can see it's kind of got an interesting design where it's a lighter color. The controls feel pretty high quality and tactile, and you have automatic up and down for the front windows, but not for the rear windows. And then your door lock controls are over here. The steering wheel also, as you can see, it's got a flat bottom design. It has that interesting look where there's no Hyundai logo in here. Instead, you have these 4 cubes, the pixels essentially, that's apparently Morse code for Hyundai. That's what they mean. They also light up depending on whether the car is interacting with you or not. The wheel itself has a manual tilt and telescoping design, which is pretty cool. And then you're kind of greeted by these 2 12-inch displays. There's a total of 24 inches in screen real estate. You can see it's just out of one piece right here, but it's 2 separate screens. This has the latest version of Hyundai's infotainment software. It also has features like where you can access the heated and cooled seats, where it's actually in the screen as opposed to being a hard button. You can also change the ambient lighting. Hyundai says there's 64 different colors, and then there's also a fully digital 12-inch cluster over there. And then if you look at the rest of the dash, you can see there's a soft touch injection molded plastic, which is nice. You have your vents that are integrated down here with more aluminum trim. You have dual zone climate control over here, where there are actual separate hard buttons for the climate and for the radio, where there's a volume knob. There's a wireless phone charging pad over here. And then you can see this big floating center console area allows for more storage down here, which is great if you want to put your purse or whatnot over there. And then there's a USB-C charging or USB-A charging port over there. I imagine this car doesn't have wireless CarPlay because Hyundai still doesn't do that, but you do have features like their Digital Key 2, where you can use your phone as a key, you can use a key card, and in terms of visibility, you can see out of it pretty well. I'm actually also want to show you guys the glove box. You can see it's pretty big. It's damped but not lined with felt. In terms of storage, the Ioniq 5 or the Ioniq 6 certainly has that made. And then over here on the dashboard, you can see that's a soft touch injection molded plastic. Above me here, you can see this sunroof. You can open up the shade, which I can't do right now, but I don't believe it actually opens up to let in air. So it's just mostly for light. But let me go ahead and hop into the back seat of this car because I want to show you guys what the space is like. Now, because this is running on a dedicated EV platform, E-GMP, you can see the backseat space, Hyundai was really able to kind of utilize all the space in here. You have a completely flat floor, which is wonderful. You have a little bit more storage over here. You have 2 USB-C charging ports. You have rear seat air vents, 2 storage pockets. I don't have the final legroom figures yet. However, this is plenty of space. Now, with that sloping roof, I am always concerned with how the headroom is going to be, but you can see here at 5'7", I can actually fit back here pretty nicely, but I imagine taller folks, as my head gets closer to the ceiling, may actually be a little bit troublesome. In terms of the materials back here, you can see more of that ambient lighting where you can change the colors. There's that interesting textured ridged material over here along with this patio area here, and you can see the rear, they put the window controls on the actual door sills, which is a little bit better. And then you can see here, fold this down, you get an armrest with 2 cup holders. And then like I said earlier, the seats, I actually do think they fold down, but right now I can't seem to find the latch to do that. But overall, the back seat is certainly still pretty usable. Now, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 is one of my favorite all-electric vehicles when it came out last year, so I'm expecting the Ioniq 6 to kind of follow in those footsteps. Remember, this is built off of the fabulous E-GMP architecture, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, the charge port door is over here on the rear of the passenger side. You can see it's a power actuated charge port door, and because this runs on the E-GMP platform, it has the 800-volt charging architecture, which means you can essentially charge this vehicle from 10 to 80% in as little as 18 minutes. It's got an onboard charger of 10.9 kilowatts. So Hyundai says you can fully charge this vehicle at home on a level 2 in about 7 hours. So that's one of the quickest charging EVs that you can find in the business. It's really gonna, again, make this car very enticing because with over 300 miles of range on a full charge and the ability to DC fast charge it really quickly, it's going to be a hot car when it goes on sale sometime early next year. Now, I don't have final pricing just yet on the Ioniq 6, but Hyundai does, Hyundai has pricing obviously for the Ioniq 5. That car starts at around 42,000, goes up to around 55. I'm gonna expect the Ioniq 6 to be a more expensive vehicle. I'm gonna say probably the mid $40,000 range to start, going up to maybe $60,000 for the fully loaded version. There's no talks yet of an N version, but there is an N version of the Ioniq 5 coming, so I wouldn't be surprised if Hyundai is also working on an N version of the Ioniq 6 when this goes on sale early next year. For Redline Reviews here at the 2022 LA Auto Show, I'm Sofyan Bey.